Hello everyone and welcome back to your channel IELTS Perfection. Today we'll be diving deep into how to master sentence structures for IELTS Writing Task 1 Academic. I'll walk you through creating clear and effective sentences and teach you how to describe trends, compare data, and summarize information. Let's get started. In IELTS Writing Task 1 Academic, you are required to describe, summarize, or explain information from a graph, table, chart, or a diagram. Your goal is to present the information clearly and coherently while using appropriate language. Types of sentences in academic writing. The first one is simple sentences. These are straightforward sentences that convey a single piece of information. These sentences contain one independent clause. You can use them for clarity and emphasis.
The number of students increased last year. The chart shows data from 2010 to 2020. Car sales declined in the second quarter.
The second type is the compound sentences. These sentences connect two independent clauses and are formed by joining two simple sentences with conjunctions like and, but, or, so, and yet. You can use this to show relationships between ideas.
The number of students increased last year, but the number of teachers remained the same. The price of oil dropped significantly, and production was reduced accordingly. Students can choose to attend classes in the morning, or they can join the evening sessions instead.
The third type is the complex sentences. Complex sentences use subordinating conjunctions like after, before, when, whenever, while, as, until, once, since, etc. to connect an independent clause with a dependent clause, also called a subordinate clause. You can use this to show clear relationships between ideas and to add depth and precision.
Although the number of students increased last year, the number of teachers remained unchanged. While the factory produced more goods, the profit margin remained the same. Because the survey was conducted in winter, the number of tourists was low.
And the last type is the compound complex sentences. These sentences combine elements of both compound and complex sentences and are great for higher level coherence.
Internet access expanded rapidly, and while rural areas lagged behind, overall usage doubled. Employment rates improved in all sectors, but since the data excludes part-time workers, the full picture is unclear. The number of students increased last year, and although the number of teachers remained the same, the overall classroom size grew.
Let's move on to key sentence structures for Task 1. Number 1 is describing trends in graphs and charts. In Task 1, you often need to describe trends, and this requires specific sentence structures. So, here's how to structure it. First of all, you need to use verbs to describe changes. For example, if you want to talk about increase, you can use the verbs like rise, grow, climb, go up, surge, escalate, soar, or jump.
The number of people using the app grew rapidly from 5,000 to 25,000 in 2 years. The unemployment rate rose steadily from 4% to 7% between 2015 and 2020.
Or if you want to explain a decrease, you can use the verbs like decline, fall, drop, decrease, go down, dip, plummet, and shrink.
The number of visitors to the museum fell sharply in the winter months. The number of magazine subscriptions declined steadily over the 5-year period.
To show stability and remaining the same, you can use the verbs like remain stable, stay constant, and plateau.
The sales of smartphones remained stable throughout the year. After a sharp rise, smartphone sales plateaued at around 10 million units.
Also, for fluctuation, you can use the verbs like fluctuate, vary, and oscillate.
The temperature fluctuated throughout the year, peaking in July. The stock market oscillated wildly in response to global events.
Adjectives are also used to describe the speed or extent of a change.
The number of students increased gradually over the years. The unemployment rate dropped sharply in the last quarter. The population grew steadily at a rate of 3% per year.
Okay, number 2 is comparing data. When comparing data, you need to use comparative and superlative forms of adjectives and adverbs. Here are some examples for comparing quantities and values.
The number of employees in Company A was higher than in Company B in 2019. The total population in Country X is significantly larger than in Country Y.
It is so important to use certain phrases if you want to compare anything in your sentences. So you can use the phrases like compared to, in comparison to, while, whereas, or on the other hand.
Compared to 2018, the number of tourists in 2019 was much higher. While the sales in the UK rose by 10%, sales in the US remained unchanged.
And here are the superlative forms for comparing data.
Among all the countries, Canada had the highest increase in GDP. The year 2019 saw the lowest levels of unemployment compared to previous years.
Number 3 is summarizing information. Summarizing is essential for giving an overall picture of the data. The first feature is use of generalization. Start with generalizations before going to specifics.
Overall, the graph shows a steady increase in the number of users over the years. In general, the sales figures remained constant, with slight fluctuations throughout the year.
There are also certain words and phrases for summarizing information. The phrases like, in summary, to summarize, overall, in general, and the data reveals that.
In summary, the trend shows an increase in both sales and demand, with only a few drops. The data reveals that most countries experienced growth in tourism, with a few exceptions.
The other feature is highlighting key data points. Sometimes summarizing means pointing out the most important data points.
In the first quarter, sales reached $10,000, whereas in the second quarter, they increased to $15,000. By 2020, the population had reached over 100 million, making it the most populous country in the region.
And finally, number 4 is using passive voice for objective tone. In academic writing, you often focus more on the data than the person performing the action. This is where the passive voice comes in. You can use the passive voice to avoid unnecessary focus on the subjects, like the researcher, company, etc., making the data the focus.
The sales figures were recorded each month. The temperature was measured daily. The data was collected over a period of 5 years.
Hope you enjoyed the lesson. Keep studying hard and I'll see you in the next video.